Hey everyone, glad to see you back. I know we're getting going just a tad early, so I just popped it up with uh, with things going a little early. I just wanted to first off, um, I'm a day late and a dollar short, but cheers to Cinco de Mayo and all my brothers out there that are celebrating that. Probably hungover today, but God bless y'all. So again, I just want to thank everybody for joining us, and I know we're going to spend a little bit of time here while people jump on. But I just want to thank everybody, all the people that have been so supportive while I've been doing this. Um, we've got. I got to give a shout out to all of them. Eric Trump, friends of NRA, all of you out there, all of my brothers and sisters who are members of the NRA. Thank you for jumping on and watching this and supporting this. Nine Line, thank you for your support. Everybody else that's out there, Daniel Defense, Don Jr., I mean, the great Americans across this country. I can go on and on of those. Charlie Daniels, Travis Tritt, Josh Turner. Today, I've got a little bit of catch up on everybody. Today, I had a great interview that'll be posted probably later this week. Got to sit down, and I can't say it was an interview. It was just a chance to have a wonderful Skype call that we recorded, and we're going to put out with Joe from the Oak Ridge Boys. And he's their tenor singer. Joe's father is a World War II veteran. He's passed away, but he was a World War II veteran. Joe has a great song out there, and it's also he's got a great book. Look it up. Let me pull it up real quick while we're sitting here, and I'll pull that up for you guys. But man, it was just such a great time getting to sit there and talk with Joe. And I mean, he's such a patriot, such a great Christian, and you just can't help just love the guy to death for everything that he's done, all the music that he's made, all of that has come about, and it's because of him. And it's because he was raised right. We were having that conversation today, talking a little bit about what's missing in this country, and a lot of probably what has to do with why we are where we're at with this pandemic or whatever you want to call it. And we've taken God out of just about everything in this country, or at least a lot of people have. And I get that question a lot about, why does God let bad things happen? Well, God doesn't let bad things happen. If you take out the good, it's going to be filled with evil. That's the way it is. I mean, if you don't have light, you're going to have darkness. If you don't have warmth, you're going to have cold. It's the absence of heat. Cold is the absence of heat. Darkness is the absence of light. And, we've taken God out of our schools. We've taken off. I mean, if it was up to the left, they would take them off our money. They would take it off of everything. Well, God's sitting on the sideline saying, hey, put me in, coach. That's all I want. Put me in. So, that's we got to get him back in our lives, back in this country, and forefront in how we live our lives, because that is a very significant factor in the outcome of life. And it also gives you that comfort. I mean, if you read Psalms 91, you're going to find where God promises he's going to take care of you. But he ain't going to take care of you unless you reach out to him and have him as part of your life. But enough about that on that part of my soapbox. We'll get back to that later this afternoon or later this evening. But let's get on to what everybody's here to hear. And we are on chapter 7, I believe, and it is Man Down. So if you're reading along with me, it's on page 150, chapter 7. Jack tore through the compound gate behind Roan. As he passed under the entrance archway, he saw the back of Roan's orange plaid shirt some 25 yards ahead of him. Roan sprinted toward the flaming, smoke-spewing villa, and Jack followed in his wake. As Jack came into the compound's manicured grounds, he cut sharply to his right to move that took him off the brick driveway and into the thick swath of well-tended grass. From there, the compound wall would serve as a partial cover to his back, in case their enemy the gate. His rifle at his shoulder, his fingers near the trigger, Jack dropped to a knee and scanned back and forth, right and left, covering Roan. To Jack's right, past a row of low hedges and several palm trees, he saw the burning Feb 17 barracks building. His every sense was hyper-aware. Jack heard scattered gunshots ring out from somewhere inside the compound. Jack didn't see any shooters in the darkness, and he couldn't tell from which direction the shots originated. He knew that he was vulnerable and exposed, but he wouldn't move until Roan was clear. When Jack saw Roan reach the villa, he sprang to his feet and ran to join him near the building's charred front entrance. 2 DS agents who'd been searching for the ambassador and Sean Smith were already there. They stood to the right of the blown open front doors, on the patio area near the low window that the DS agents had used in their repeated forays into the safe haven area in attempts to find the missing men. The operators and the DS agents gathered in a loose circle by the 4-foot pile of sandbags stacked along the patio's edge. At their feet were clods of dirt and shards of pottery, remnants of a smashed 2-foot clay planter. One of the DS agents who met Jack and Roan was Scott Wicklund. Suffering from smoke inhalation, his lungs scarred by diesel fumes, Wicklund had climbed down from the villa roof to rejoin the rescue effort. Jack barely recognized him. Wicklund looked like a chimney sweep, his boyish face and light brown hair coated in black soot. Red veins of broken blood vessels covered his heavily lidded eyes. Wicklund's shoulders slumped. His feet were bare. His clothes were blackened rags. The other DS agent standing alongside Wicklund was Big Dave Ubben. Drooping from fatigue, his t-shirt smudged with ash, his meaty face slack. Only days earlier, the 4 men had sat outside the villa, discussing their worries about the understaffed compound security team. Now their worst fears had been realized. For a few seconds, no one said anything, as the 2 former SEALs and the 2 DS agents looked at one another in disbelief. Ubben and Wicklund shook their heads and looked to the ground. They'd trained for this and had known that this was possible. They'd trained for this and had known that it was possible. They'd responded to the best of their abilities, but now it was real and awful, and it wasn't nearly over yet. From the corner of his eye, Jack glanced toward the open front doors. The villa's entrance foyer was dark, but through the smoky haze, he could see red-hot coals from the wood of incinerated furniture, smoldering on the ruined marble tile floors. It reminded Jack of looking inside a wood-fired pizza oven. He could feel the intense heat pulsing from within. His voice hoarse from smoke. Ubben broke the silence. There's still guys in the building. Immediately, Jack and Roan went into the window at the far end of the patio. Wicklund, Ubben, and the 2 DS agents from Tripoli had already gone through it multiple times, and now the window hung crooked on its frame, attached to the building from only one top corner. Jack didn't know where the Tripoli-based agents had gone, but he got the impression that Wicklund and Ubben were on the verge of collapse. He could tell that they were deeply relieved to see him and Roan take over the search for Chris Stevens and Sean Smith. As they rushed to the window, Roan and Jack shared a brief, "Can this possibly get worse?" look. Jack believed that it would take a miracle to pull anyone out alive, and they'd need to be vigilant. They'd need to be vigilant if they wanted to get them out themselves. Jack climbed through the window into the bedroom in the villa's safe haven area. The moment his feet hit the floor, he felt the most intense blast of heat he'd ever experienced. The only comparison he could think of was opening an oven door on Thanksgiving after a turkey had been roasted all day. His nose and eyes recoiled from the noxious vapors and caustic diesel smoke. Sharp fumes from burning textiles and plastic added to the stench. Jack felt his contact lenses dry out instantly. He wondered if they might melt against his eyeballs. Roan and Jack took deep breaths and held them for as long as possible. They bowled their way past furniture and mattresses strewn around the bedroom from the DS agent's previous searches. They went as far as they could, as fast as they could, inside the bedroom. But with no clean air, that wasn't far. They rushed back to the window for fresh breaths. With each trip inside, they tried to reach deeper, to push themselves further on a single chest full of air. Even as they knew they were tempting fate. Go too far or take a wrong turn or lose your way in the dark, Jack told himself, and you'll be a missing man as well. Coughing and feeling lightheaded, Jack and Roan began to alternate their searches of the safe haven, taking turns going inside the villa through the window. Time after time, they emerged alone, frustrated that they couldn't explore the far reaches of the safe haven. They tried going in through the front doors. Depending on which way they went, the operators might be able to sneak in a few tolerable breaths inside and search a minute or two longer. But inevitably, the furnace pushed them back outside. In much of the villa, visibility was a few feet or less. Roan and Jack lit the flashlights mounted on their weapons, but the white beam barely penetrated the smoky blackness. They moved or lifted whatever furniture they came upon in the hope of finding their missing countrymen. Anyone still inside was likely to be on the ground, they reasoned, so they focused their searches close to the floor. The heat was slightly less intense down below their feet, but still baked in their boots. Jack felt a wave of gloom. And there's no way in hell that they could possibly be alive, he thought. There's no way to survive this for more than a few minutes. Yet he and Roan continued looking. After more than a dozen attempts each, Jack and Roan were discouraged that they still hadn't been able to reach some parts of the back half of the villa. Each time they tried, they'd been forced out by the smoke and heat. From outside on the patio, they ran around to the rear of the building to see if they could get in another way. They heard pops of gunfire in the distance, but the attackers had fallen back from the area around the villa and were nowhere in sight. Still, Jack and Roan moved on high alert, guns up, elbows tucked close to their torsos, heads swiveling, eyes scanning for targets. They found an open back door and stepped inside, but it was just as dark, hot, and smoky, and they couldn't explore far before they were forced back out the door for breaths. After several attempts with the same dispiriting results, they abandoned that approach and moved outside. Jack ran around to the front of the villa, expecting Roan to follow, but in the darkness, the two operators became separated. Jack continued alone toward the patio area near the bedroom window. Tig had approached the villa by running up the same brick driveway and across the same grass field as Roan and Jack. He reached the building while the fellow operators were inside searching. No one was on the patio when he arrived, so Tig positioned himself behind the sandbags to create a perimeter defense while he waited. When he first entered the compound, Tig saw a Libyan man in camouflage pants and a t-shirt walking away from the burning Feb 17 barracks. The man was unarmed, and he seemed to belong there, so Tig didn't shoot him. The compound quiet, except for the crackling of burning buildings. As he stood near the sandbag fighting position toward the front of the villa, Tig heard loud noises and crashing sounds from inside. He heard someone kick in a door. Tig wasn't sure who was inside, but he concluded that the racket must be coming from Jack, Roan, DS agents, or militiamen overturning furniture and clearing rooms. As Tig waited for them to emerge, he was startled by the sight of a gray Land Cruiser speeding around the corner in front of the villa. Here come the bad guys, Tig thought. He raised his belt-fed machine gun and followed the SUV's movements with the weapon's barrel. Tig prepared to unload as the vehicle drove past him toward the front of the villa. At the last second before he opened fire, Tig recognized Dave Ubben's face through the windshield. Also in the vehicle was one of the Tripoli-based DS agents. Tig took his finger off the trigger, lowered the machine gun, and exhaled. When Jack returned to the front of the villa, he found several 17th Fed militiamen going in and out through the main entrance, trying to help with the search. Jack went into the patio and poked his head inside the bedroom window, intending to try again. Immediately, he saw two DS agents, Dave Ubben and the taller of the two agents from Tripoli, come toward the window through the smoke wearing gas masks. Jack's first thought was to wonder where they'd gotten the gear and how he could get similar masks for himself and his fellow operators. As the agents grew closer, Jack's smoke-strained eyes focused. The two DS agents stood on either side of a limp man, dragging him toward the window. The man faced upward, wearing dark jeans and a gray t-shirt. Dave Ubben and the Tripoli agents each had the man by an arm, holding his torso and bald head off the ground. His legs and rear dragged along the ashy floor. Jack leaned through the window and reached out with both arms. When the agents approached, Jack slid his hands under the man's arms and locked them in front of his chest. Jack pulled the unresponsive man up through the window, then gently laid him on the concrete pad, protected behind the sandbags. Jack didn't recognize the man. He couldn't tell whether he was American or Libyan. Jack dropped to his knees to the right of the man's head. He knew from his SEAL training that even before trying to establish an airway, he needed to make sure the man wasn't in danger of bleeding to death. Jack lifted the man's t-shirt and checked his torso for chest or stomach trauma. He found no signs of injury. No blood appeared to be seeping through his pants. Jack pulled up the man's shirt all the way to his neck. He turned the man onto one side to look and feel around his back for blood or trauma that might reveal internal bleeding. Finding none, Jack eased the man down onto his back. The man flopped limply each time Jack moved his body or limbs. Jack leaned down and put his ear to the man's nose and mouth. He listened and felt for breath, but found none. He searched fruitlessly for a pulse. Jack's hands were on the man's bare chest, and he noticed that the skin felt deathly cold to the touch. He looked at the man's face and saw a dark ring around his lips from inhaling diesel smoke. Jack considered trying CPR, but he felt certain it would do no good. The DS agent stood over Jack as he worked, watching and hoping. Jack looked up at Dave Ubben. "No," Jack said. "He's gone." Ubin shook his head and turned away. Jack saw tears in his eyes. Soon, Jack would learn that the man he'd just declared dead was Sean Smith, a 34-year-old State Department communications expert, a married father of 2 young children, a star video game player known to his online friends as Vile Rat. Only hours earlier, Smith had written an online message complaining about the Libyan police photographing the compound that morning. Smith had begun the message with what now seemed like an anxious prophecy. Assuming we don't die tonight. Jack didn't know Smith well. They'd met several days earlier when they were introduced during a dinner at the annex kitchen. Jack felt miserable about Sean's death, but there was no time to mourn him. Jack and the other DS agent lifted Sean's body and carried it to a spot near the villa's front door. While Jack was trying to help Smith, he heard one of the DS agents say they weren't finished searching the villa. The ambo's still missing. Jack resumed searching, as did the DS agents and several of the Feb 17 militia members who'd come onto the compound as the attackers fell back. At one point, Jack counted more than 10 searchers, but inside of the villa still burned hot. They focused as much as possible on the safe haven area, but no one could find Ambassador Christopher Stevens. After getting separated from Jack in the dark on their way back to the front entrance, Roan ran into Tig outside the villa. Together, they saw Jack bent over Sean Smith's body. "Is that one of ours?" Tig asked. Roan didn't know. Word spread that Stevens remained lost and the villa hadn't yet been declared clear. Tig and Roan turned on the flashlights of their assault rifles and went through the front door side by side. Tig had been in the villa months earlier, so he had a mental picture of the floor plan that he thought would be helpful to the search. They went in low, crouching to stay beneath the smoke. But on their first trip, the heat was so overpowering, they lasted only about 30 seconds and reached no more than 15 feet inside. Even with their lights, they could barely see beyond the end of their rifle barrels. It reminded Tig of turning on a car's headlights in a thick fog. "Holy shit," Tig said outside, sweat dripping from every pore. "This is going to be rough." They took deep breaths and went back in, lasting about a minute on their second trip. On their third attempt, Tig went further than he had earlier, reaching a pile of furniture outside the steel gate to the safe haven. The gate looked as though it had remained locked and Tig couldn't get through the furniture to reach it. Tig called for the ambassador at the top of his lungs. From behind him, outside the villa, came an answer. "Yeah, I'm here." Tig recognized the voice as belonging to the team leader, who joined them by driving the Mercedes SUV up with Henry, the translator, from the Gunfighter Road intersection into the compound. Coughing from the smoke, Tig called back, "No, not you, Chris Stevens." Tig got no reply from inside the safe haven. Calling out the ambassador's name, Tig filled his lungs with smoke. He and Roan went back out the front steps. After a few deep breaths, they gave it a fourth try. Again, they went to the deeper part of the open living space, but again they found no signs of Stevens. Tig circled back around toward the front doors. He couldn't see more than a foot in either direction, but he thought that Roan was next to him the whole time. "I'm lost," Roan called from somewhere across the smoke-filled room. "I can't find my way out." Tig turned toward his friend. "Come to my voice." I'm lost, Roan said. Follow my voice. Each breath filling their lungs with smoke. They continued the call and respond exchange several times. From the direction of Roan's calls, Tig realized Roan was disoriented and moving toward the kitchen. From his previous searches, Tig knew that part of the villa remained engulfed in flames. He yelled to Roan to keep talking, then rushed toward Roan's voice. When he caught sight of Roan through the smoke, Tig reached out and grabbed him. Both were caught madly, fresh air, as Tig led Roan to the front doors and safely outside. As the two operators caught their breath, bent over with their hands on their knees, their rifles dangling, Tig and Roan heard a radio call from Tonto and DB, saying that they were ready to move into the compound through the back gate. DS agents and militiamen continued to search the villa, so Tig and Roan moved to cover the incoming operators. Roan and Tig went to a dirt pathway that bisected the compound, stretching from the north wall to the south wall. Along much of the path toward the rear half of the compound, an orchard and a vineyard provided abundant potential hiding places for their enemies. Tig and Roan took positions on either side of the path. Roan was still thinking about the deadly serious game of Marco Polo they'd just played inside the villa. Hey, dude, thanks, Roan said. You just saved my life. I thought I was going to die in there. Tig knew that Roan would have done the same for him. Hopefully we'll all get out of this alive, Tig said. Standing a dozen feet apart across the dirt pathway, Tig and Roan watched the darkened areas of trees and vines to make sure Tonto and DB weren't walking into an ambush. A man walked slowly out of the orchard, and the operators trained their sights on him. But Tig recognized the man as a Blue Mountain guard who'd apparently hidden among the trees, waiting for the Americans to arrive. Before moving to the compound's back gate, Tonto and DB took cover behind concrete Jersey barriers on the Fourth Ring Road, anticipating that some of the attackers might flee that way when Roan and Tig moved toward the rear of the property. But after several minutes, no one came through, so Tonto radioed Tig. We're starting to come in, Tonto said. Don't shoot at us. Roger that. Tonto and DB tested the back gate but found it locked. DB moved down the property wall to the southwest corner to see if he could locate another way in. Finding no other entrance and no easy way over the wall, topped with razor wire, DB decided to climb over the gate. Tonto thought he had a better idea, so he ran back to the 17 Fed commander outside the grocery store to ask for help. Hey, get one of your trucks over here to push this gate open, Tonto said. We're thinking we're going to need to jump it. But if you get one of those trucks, we can ram it open. No, sir, the militia commander said, politely, but firmly. Get a fucking truck over here and ram it open, Tonto demanded. No, I don't think we can do that, the commander said. We don't have a truck. Tonto noticed that the militia had failed to block traffic on the Fourth Ring Road, so cars kept driving past, with drivers honking horns as rubbernecking passengers tried to see the burning buildings inside the compound. Well then, let's commandeer one of these fucking vehicles, Tonto said, pointing to the cars and trucks cruising by. No, sir, we don't want to do that. So much for a helpful, friendly militia. Tonto fought to keep his cool. DB had heard enough. He climbed over the gate and checked a small guard shack inside the compound to be sure it was empty. Tonto stood by the gate, expecting DB to open it from the inside. But after clearing the guard shack, DB ran up to meet with Tig and Roan. Loaded down with weapons and gear, Already sore and bleeding from the collapsed wall, Tonto continued waiting outside the property with the two young militiamen he'd grown to trust. Also, nearby were a couple dozen militiamen with a commander he'd begun to hate. He yelled to his partner, DB, open the fucking gate for me. He laughed at the absurdity of the situation, throwing back his head and looking at the dark sky for help. I'm out here by myself with all these militia guys, Tonto thought. Nobody is shooting at me. Not yet. DB came back and opened the gate. Tonto tried several times to raise DB on the radio, but he couldn't get through. DB had in fact heard Tonto. He yelled no in response, though Tonto didn't hear him. With an unsecured guard shack and a darkened vineyard before him, DB wasn't about to turn his back to potential threats and unlock the gate. Finally, Tonto loaded his weapon onto his shoulders, caught his breath, and climbed over the gate. Before he could catch up with his fellow operators, Tonto heard the voice of one of his two young Feb 17 militia companions. Sir, gate, he said. Tonto returned to the rear wall and opened the gate from the inside. He called out to the militia commander, assuming that he'd bring in his troops as well. As soon as you come through, close this gate and lock it. Okay, the commander said. Yes, sir. Tonto and the militiamen ran towards Tig, Roan, and DB. Along the way, Tonto noticed that the operators had stopped watching the unlit orchard, where he suspected some of the attackers might be lying in wait. Tonto dropped down to one side of the dirt path that cut through the compound and trained his weapon on the trees. From his prone position, Tonto got off his first good look at the main villa, still afire. Its exterior walls blackened near the windows where flames had shot out. Further away near the window, he saw flames and smoke from above the burning 17 Fed barracks. As he held that position, sweating and bleeding, Tonto took the opportunity to catch his breath and regroup. Tig came on the radio and told Tonto that he needed to move to the other side of the pathway to cover the opposite side of the orchard. You son of a bitch, Tonto told Tig. You turn your ass around and protect that side. I just want to lay here. I'm tired. Tonto's complaints momentarily lightened the mood, raising smiles with Tig and DB. Even as he grumbled, Tonto moved to watch to the other side of the trees. Jack remained near the villa to continue the search, but none of the other operators was in one place for long. Frequently, they roamed back and forth between the villa, the other buildings on the compound, and the orchard and vineyard area. They didn't know where the attackers had gone, but they expected them back at any minute. Roan moved from the orchard toward the Tactical Operations Center and the cantina. Tonto joined Tig, DB, and the militiamen on the dirt pathway, and from there they spread out through the orchard. They didn't have time to clear it completely, but they satisfied themselves that it was safe enough for them to head back toward the front of the compound, to the villa and other buildings. A handful of 17 Fed militiamen had joined them on their march through the orchard, mirroring their actions and trying to be useful. One Feb 17 member whom Tonto didn't see was the commander who'd promised to lock the back gate. He'd apparently remained safely in the rear. As Tig approached the dirt path at the end of one row of trees, he watched one of the militiamen whip around a corner and pop off roughly 20 rounds of his AK into the darkness. Tig prepared to join the shooting, but he never saw a target. He suspected that the young militiaman was either jumpy or simply wanted to say that he'd been in a firefight. Tonto, DB, and Tig moved toward the cantina and the talk. Roan rejoined their crew, and they split into pairs. Roan and DB headed to clear the cantina. They found no one inside the ransacked building, which was strewn with broken furniture and ruined food ripped from shelves and refrigerators. Meanwhile, Tig and Tonto ran to clear the talk. It wasn't immediately clear where DS agent Alec Henderson was, but he was still inside. So Tig and Tonto tried to reach him on their radios. That didn't work. So they stood outside and called through the talk door. Is anybody inside? Tonto asked. He stood near the video camera. Can you see us? We're friendlies, and we need to come in. Tonto received no answer. So he and Tig flanked the building's main window with several 17 Fed militiamen. Tried to kick in the reinforced wooden door. The door held fast. So Tig tried kicking it in himself. Still, it wouldn't budge. Tig got back on the radio. If you guys are in there, open up, or else I'm going to shoot the fucking door open. He took a knee and aimed his weapon at the door. Henderson immediately came on the radio. Yes, I'm in here. I am in here. The DS agent explained that he thought that the attackers who tried earlier to break into the talk had returned. Get in front of the camera so I can see you, he said. Tig stood beneath the lens by the entrance door and waved. Henderson lowered his shotgun, unlocked the door, and removed the steel drop bar that had kept it secure. Tig and Tonto burst into the talk in a hard entry to make sure no attackers were inside. No, Henderson yelled as he lurched outside, disoriented. Nobody got in here. Tig stepped back out and walked to a carport about 15 yards away to provide perimeter security. He set up his belt-fed machine gun on the hood of a gray Land Cruiser and took a quick breather. Roan and DB joined Tonto at the talk, and together they cleared the rest of the building. Then Henderson went back inside to gather the destroy classified documents and data, computer equipment, and other sensitive materials. No enemy attackers seemed to remain on or near the compound. Members of the 17th Fed militia continued to filter onto the property, roaming freely from one end to the other. Some wore black t-shirts, some wore white t-shirts, some wore jeans, and some wore desert camouflage, and some wore woodland army green fatigues. Some wore beards, others were clean shaven, and some wore baklavas covering their face, and some were armed and some were not. None of them wore insignia or declared their allegiance. In almost every way, they were physically indistinguishable from the attackers who'd swarmed the compound. The only difference worth noting was that, unlike the attackers, none of them carried banners with Arabic writing. As the operators and the DS agents ruefully joked, what's the difference between how Libyans look when they're coming to help you versus when they're coming to kill you? Not much. To the operators, some of the militiamen seemed genuinely willing to fight, to search for the ambassador and hunt for attackers who might be hiding in the dark. The operators continued to view the 17 Fed members with varying degrees of trust, but all adopted a Benghazi modification of the Golden Rule. If they don't pose a threat, we won't shoot them. After clearing the cantina and the talk, Roan returned to the villa. He helped Jack and the team leader with the frustrating effort to get deep inside to see if the ambassador might yet be located. Tonto and DB helped Alec Henderson collect and destroy classified material from the talk, while Tig remained posted outside in the carport. Henry, the translator, who'd come into the compound in the Mercedes SUV, driven by the team leader, remained out of sight, hunched low inside the vehicle. The time was somewhere around 11 p.m. Sean Smith was confirmed dead, apparently from smoke inhalation. Ambassador Christopher Stevens was still missing. The main villa and the militia barracks still burned, but the attackers apparently had left. Perhaps retreated to nearby streets and homes to regroup. The Americans had regained at least temporary control of the Special Mission Compound. The sound of gunfire had all but ceased. To the uninitiated, that the lull in the action meant that the fighting was over. But the operators harbored no illusions. To a man, they believed that their night and their enemies were just getting started. Well, that concludes chapter 7. It was a little bit shorter this time. But looking at chapter 8, counterattack, it's a long chapter, so I think we'll hold that off for Friday night and let everybody catch up and get caught up on any of the other missed ones. Hopefully, let me check here and see what kind of questions we've got. Hopefully, we got a lot of people joining us in with that. Well, hold up here, and I got a little bit of a technical difficulty. Let's see if I can get this pulled up. I'm waiting for permission to get to the Google Doc that has all the questions. Okay. So, first question is from Belinda. Belinda asks, do you guys have dreams of where you have been? God bless you all, and thank you for your service. No, I don't. I mean, I can't speak for the other guys, but as far as I know, none of them really have any bad dreams that they've talked about. But as for me, I don't. I think we all have a little bit of different view on, or different symptoms, maybe of PTS or the TBI, because a lot, they're so similar. But more than anything, for at least for me myself, talking about this, writing this book, helping with the movie, and continuing to speak about this and the event, and to help others in understanding what took place there, as well as the idea of overcoming when the chips are down, when you have that, because it would have been easy to roll over and give up that night. But no matter what had happened, that wasn't going to be there. For me, myself, Belinda, I know that with my faith in the Lord and with his protections and his will, whatever's going to be done is going to be done. And for me, it was either I was going to come home and be with my family, or I was going to get to go home and be with the Lord. So for that, it gave me a sincere peace in everything that I've ever done and how I've always operated in my life. Larry is asking how many hours went by until I was able to get medical attention at a hospital. Well, when I got injured with the 3 mortars, it was about 5:15 in the morning. By the time I got to, other than getting a tourniquet on me right away from TIG and a little bit of very basic first aid, I didn't get to a hospital or any significant attention closer to 10:30 later that morning. So it was about a good 5 hours before I was able to get to any medical help. I'm not getting any of them, honey. So, okay. Let's see. Larry, thanks for the shout out for the hat. Yeah, it is one of my favorite hats that I like to wear. Next, we have Joe Garcia. How in the world were you able to tell the good guys from the bad guys? Joe, that wasn't easy. For the most part, the way that you tell the good guys from the bad guys is who's pointing a gun at you. I mean, I like to say it was like the Wild Wild West. You never know who the good guy is or the bad guy until he's pointing a gun at you, and you better be quicker on the draw or at least quicker on the trigger than he is. Sherry Fox just gave a shout out, said thanks for the read, Mark. Just rewatched the movie. Totally FUBAR situation. Yeah, it was. I mean, it definitely was FUBAR. I will say that. And any response was that as well. Tammy says, been stuck at home with COVID for a month. Back to work now. I have looked forward to this and appreciate your time. God bless. Hey, Tammy, thank you. I'm glad you're getting back to work and getting out there. Stay safe, stay healthy, and thank you for watching and thank you for staying involved. Hey, Matt Fleming, if you could tell Roan and Bub one last thing, what would it be? Good question. I've never thought of that. If I could tell them anything before that first mortar hit, I think I'd have told them to get down on the ground, because the closer they could have got to the ground, it would have increased their probability of surviving. Joe comes back. Hey, one more question. At the compound where Chris Stevens was set up to make, was Chris Stevens set up to make him a sitting duck? And are the contractors better armed these days? I don't believe there was any intentional setup of Christopher Stevens. I don't believe that was the case at all, Joe. As for being better armed these days, I really can't go into how the contractors are armed with the CIA, but I do hope that the DSS agents and the facilities around the world are better armed and are taking the information in their quest from the guys on the ground. I think a good example of what we've seen, the closest to a Benghazi, would be what happened in Baghdad when the protesters, and I'll call them protesters, when the terrorists used the cover of being a protest to get close to the U.S. embassy and attack it. You saw the results there. I mean, one, that embassy in Baghdad is highly defended, been built very well to all the specifications it should be. But more than anything, it was that helped that situation there was that we had a commander-in-chief who responded immediately, forcefully, and gave the people on the ground the tools and the people needed to make sure that that would not be another Benghazi. Eli asks Oz, did y'all ever find out where Chris's body was found? Yeah, we did. So as best as we could tell from what information we gathered is that he got lost and separated from Scott Wicklund. His personal protective agent, whose responsibility is to stay attached to him and get him out. It got separated. In that smoke, Christopher Stevens ended up getting back to the bedroom, and I believe his body, for all I know, from what I know, his body was found in between the wall and the bed. He's trying to find a place to get air, and that's where he was found. He was pulled out by some locals, and luckily there was a local who was a neighbor who actually knew Chris Stevens, was very compassionate to him. When he saw the bad guys and the looters and the terrorists pull Christopher Stevens' body out, he was able to grab it up from them and threw him in his car and tried to get him to the hospital, hoping that he would still be alive. Angelo Lefter says, Mark, how did you make it off the roof without falling? Well, Angelo, the only, like I've said is, I don't, if my obituary, if it read, got blown up after a gunfight, got blown up while fighting to save his brothers and those that he was to protect to his left and right, I'm okay with that. But the last thing in the world, my obituary was going to read is survived gunfight, survived getting blown up 3 times and fell off roof and broke neck. That is not how I was going to go out. That is not the way that my kids were going to read my history. So I had no doubt that I was going to find some way to get off that ladder. And what happened is, and we'll talk about it more in detail when we get further into the other chapters, but I had leaned over, hooked my good arm, the crook of my elbow around that top rung of the ladder, and just slid my body off, knowing that it was going to turn and hopefully land on the ladder. My feet didn't hit the rungs, but I didn't fall other than a few, a foot or so. Was able to hold myself up and then get myself back get myself situated and get back down that ladder. Josh, Sue, Mark, McCreary, God bless you guys. Thanks for joining. Thanks for watching. Love you guys. Julie Poole asks, do you know if anyone got lung damage from the smoke? Yeah, they did. I mean, how bad it is, I don't know. But I know Tig had some pretty significant symptoms afterwards of smoke inhalation. I believe Jack as well did. But, they both fought for it, and they're both fighting to overcome that. Paul asks Oz, hey, did Feb 17 militiamen join you and the other operators in defending the other compound? No, they didn't, Paul. When the rest of the team got out of there and headed back, the Feb 17 guys pretty much stayed at that compound or went back to their own compound. None of them came over and helped defend our location. It was just the 6 of us. Karen King Sanson, met you at VBFH last September. You signed a book for me. Hey, Karen, thank you very much. And thanks for all your support. Joe, no, I didn't mean he was set up. Sorry, I meant was the way the compound was arranged. So, hey, thanks for clarifying that, Joe. Yeah, I mean, the State Department compound was about 8 acres, and they had 5 diplomatic security officers with 4 Feb 17 militia to protect 8 acres. I mean, that's ridiculous in my book. I mean, to truly control that much battle space, I would have put a platoon, or at least a reinforced platoon, if not a company of Marines there to cover it the way that it should have been covered, especially with the threats that were in that country and in Benghazi at that time. But I think the administration at that time, they were more worried about the image of the U.S. trying to run Libya, and they didn't want the locals to think that we were trying to take it over. We wanted to give them the Arab Spring that they had and let them try to run their own country. Hindsight's 2020, of course, but sometimes you got to think of the safety of your people before you worry about the how other people feel about you. Hey, Rob, thanks for watching. Kathy Patel, thank you as well. You're the best. Becky says, met you back in 2016 in Lake Charles, Louisiana. Thank you for all you do and all your service. Becky, thank you very much. Thank you for all the support. Love that. Karen comes back on, says, such an intense time. I didn't listen to you read tonight. Read your book. Hey, Karen, thanks so much. Understand sometimes it's not easiest thing to listen to it, to live it, or to follow up with it or watch the movie, but thank you all. No, I wasn't a former SEAL. I took the step above that and I joined the Marine Corps. We're the ones that come in and make sure that the SEALs are trained right. Hey, Julie Bender Geist, thank you for watching. Thanks for joining. It is great to have you. Karen Wright, U.S. Marine, thanks for clarifying that for everybody, as well as Tammy. And thanks for my beautiful wife who's watching as well. So, again, Mark and Josh, next time we're going to have to get you guys to learn how to show up on time. But thanks a lot. As well as Robert, thank you for watching as well. Next, we have Matt Fleming. Any plans to come out to San Diego post-corona? I'm a member of American Legion 416 in Encinitas, California. It'd be an honor to buy you around. Yeah, Matt, it would be, we're going to try to get out there. I know the one thing on my bucket list, and it probably won't take place until next summer at best, is I want to do in San Diego to honor Ty and Glenn and their service, both as Navy SEALs and as contractors and friends of mine. We at Shadow Warriors want to set up a relay swim / run, and I think I would love to start it at Seal Beach, swim through the bay, end up over below Rosecrans, and finish it off running the road up to the top and ending at Ty's gravesite. But so hopefully we can make that happen. That is on my bucket list. Karen George also met me at Virginia Beach, Fallen Heroes last year. Got one of our signed stuffed dogs. We've got some more of those out. We've just got them in. We're getting some little vests on them. We're going to have them autographed, and we're also getting Roan's paw print stamped on so as her signature as well. And we're going to get them up on the website for sale. So please, thank you for that, Karen. Hey, David Keller, thanks for watching. Thanks for joining. And hey, David Keller, give a shout out to him. He handles all our social media for both Shadow Warriors as well as myself. He's kind of the tech guy behind all this, former Marine as well. So Semper Fi, brother, and thanks for all you do for us. Hey, Matt shouted out, Glenn is a legend at the Legion post since he lived and worked close to where we are. Yeah, Glenn was a surfer Navy SEAL by heart and surfer by part time. But he loved it. Yeah, thanks a lot again, Matt. Tell all your people at the Legion, God bless, and thank them all for their service for me. I see Karen says step above the seal, haha. You know what I'm talking about. And hey, if we weren't going to bust each other's balls, we wouldn't be brothers, right? Thanks a lot. Hey, Luis Enrique. Hey, thanks for joining us. And Matt, thank you as well. Roan tonight, she's up in her crate. She's in timeout. So don't have her here, Julie. So, next Friday, join us this coming Friday. We'll make sure that we got. I think that's most everything. If we didn't get to anybody, we will definitely look through all our social media, put together those questions, follow us, and we'll try to get to those before we come up on Friday. Our next chapter is going to be the counterattack and getting back over to the annex. And so it's going to be a pretty long chapter, so we'll be there next week. So, again, same bat channel, same bat time. We'll see you at 7 o'clock Central Time. Again, I just want to thank everybody out there who's been following us. If you have been, God bless you. Thank you for your loyalty, for the support. For anybody that's new, hey, thank you so much as well. And remember, again, I'm going to give a shout out for Shadow Warriors. Anybody who gets on and makes a reoccurring donation of $20, we're going to get you an autographed book signed by myself, sent out to you. And you know that you're going to be helping a great organization. Shadow Warriors is helping all those guys and gals that have served in the shadows in this country. Now that we've had a lot of these military operations in Iraq and Afghanistan and Syria slow down a little bit, pulling some of our armed forces back, we still have a lot of contractors over there still putting their lives on the line, still doing what they need to do to make sure our service members or our patriots who are serving in the government and civilian organizations come home. So we're taking care of them and their family, as well as all of those who have gone before. So we're making sure their kids are taken care of and their families. So anything that you guys can do, and I know it's rough times, and I know that a lot of us are out of work, but anything you can do helps, and know that it's going to be put to good use. Again, God bless you all. Thank you for your support tonight. See you next Friday. God bless, and stay safe and stay healthy.